let's go to the core of Excel, which is its powerful set of formulas and functions. First of all, let's deal with formulas in general. Okay, how to write simple formulas. Well, can you see that you currently have two, I have at least, two Excel files open? Okay, so always have a clear idea of how many Excel files we have open and which one. Tab-delimited, it's the one we have used to import things. You can delete without saving anything, so you can close it, sorry, without saving anything. Okay, let's go here. But let's go to first sheet. So sheet number first, clean it up a little bit. So select everything which you have added, right click, delete. Okay, let's see how to build formulas. Well, formulas start with equal. The simplest one is a mathematical addition, so you make this one. So you can see that I didn't type, I just click with the mouse the cell, then I type on the keyboard plus, then I clicked another cell. Okay. When you click cells, you see the cell reference appearing here, and at the same time it's colored of the same color of the cell border. It's only a temporary color to show you which cells are you using. Okay. Because when you build complex formulas, you can become crazy without this tool here. Okay, you press enter, you get the result. Okay, you can do the same thing without clicking, but simply typing. Now I'm typing D3 plus C7. Okay, also when you type, you get the color and etc. So clicking or typing is the same thing. Usually clicking is faster, and you know exactly what you're taking. However, sometimes the cell is outside your screen, and you have to type the name. Okay, let me see. Okay, you can do all the mathematical operation you like. We have done here an addition. You can do obviously a subtraction, and I refuse to make an example. You can do multiplications. Okay. A symbol of multiplication in computer science is the asterisk, not the x, so don't write like this because it doesn't work, and don't write like this because it doesn't work. Okay. Well, you can multiply by constants with a comma, or you can multiply also by other cells' value. Same thing for additions and subtraction. You may subtract also a constant or another cell value, no problem. Okay. You can make divisions. The symbol for division in computer science is not this one, which has another meaning, is this one, the slash. Not the backslash, so not this one, divided by 3. You can divide by a constant, you can divide by another cell. You can even not using cells, so you can make 2 divided by 5, 0.4. So it's not mandatory to use always cells. Most of the time you will, however. You can use another symbol, which means raised to the power of. So equal 4.6 to the power of 2. This symbol means to the power of. It's the little exponent. Pay attention that on a German keyboard, unfortunately, this symbol doesn't work properly. If you press it, the first time that you press, nothing happens. Don't repress it. You simply, after having pressed the symbol, need to press the space bar. So, press the symbol and then the space. You will see only the symbol, not the space. Okay, it's a mystery of the German keyboard. If you press the symbol and you repress it, you will get 2 symbols in this way. Okay, and then you will have to simply delete one. Okay. You can also, again, raise the power of another cell. Okay, it's not necessary to raise the power of a number. Okay, so you can do whatever you want, also 3 to the power of. Okay. Obviously, if you do wrong things, such as this number divided by 0, it gives you an error. Okay, here you see the error. Okay, same thing if you do minus 3. a negative number. Let's take a negative number, this one, to the power of 0.5, which is the square root error. Okay, so you can see that sometimes you get errors. Okay, errors always start with symbol, but then you have the error specification. The famous one is the division by 0. Well, it's not so obvious. Well, if you do something like this, it's clearly a division by 0. But in other cases, it may not be so obvious. You maybe do E9 divided by E6. It works. But then somebody changes E6 to 0, and you get the error here. So it's not obvious to recognize when and where are you doing the division by 0 error. You have here other true errors. The name, you are using a cell name which doesn't exist. Typically you have mistyped the cell name, or you have typed something which Excel believes it's a cell name and it doesn't exist. We will see the ref errors in detail later. The other three errors are typically errors of functions. When you get one of these errors, I suggest you to look at the function. You have not used the function properly. So division by 0, you are using a wrong cell name. We will see it later. Functions error. Let's open a parenthesis on parenthesis. Okay. You can use as many parentheses as you want, and I strongly suggest you to use parentheses whenever you are in doubt. I imagine that most of you don't have a clear idea of the order of mathematical operation. Probably all of you know that multiplication and division is done before addition and subtraction. But judging from the exam results, there are still some students who don't know it. There are other more complex cases, and you don't know which operation will be done first by Excel. Well, in case you don't know, don't worry, use parentheses. Let's make some examples. Suppose I tell you, calculate D2 plus D4, everything divided by 3. Well, D2 plus D4, everything divided by 3, must be written with a parenthesis in this way. If you don't type the parenthesis, the result is something completely different. If you type it, let's see, what is D4, D2, D4 equal D2. Result completely different. In this case, you divide the sum by 3. In this case, you divide D4 by 3. And then you sum D2. Okay? There is a mathematical order. In case you don't have any idea of the mathematical order, because your mathematical knowledge is not so high, don't worry. Abuse parentheses. Put them everywhere. You can put as many parentheses as you want, but only round parentheses. Never square parentheses, and never, let's see, curled parentheses, please. Okay, only round parentheses. You can put, for example, another parenthesis here. Okay. You can see that also parentheses are colored to show you which one closes and matches which one. So you put as many parentheses as you want. I will never mark as a mistake if you put a parenthesis, an extra parenthesis unnecessary, provided that it's not wrong. If it is unnecessary, I will not count it as a mistake. If it is wrong, I will count it as a mistake. So for example, you can even put a parenthesis here around the 3 just to be very sure. Okay, so abuse with parentheses, it's not a problem. Okay. For example, suppose I tell you, please calculate, let's take okay, if it arrives, okay. I would like to have C2 minus D2. Don't worry about what is written here, only what I write here. It's divided by C3 plus C4, everything to the power of 2 minus 5. Okay, don't worry what is written here. It means that I have a very bad handwriting. Okay. Let's try to put it. Equal. Well, clearly, if you write without a parenthesis, you are totally crazy. You will write something like this. The power of 2 divided by C3 plus C4 minus 5. It will be completely wrong, and I will mark it as a severe error. The student doesn't have any idea of mathematics. Okay, so you should use parentheses, at least the ones I put, but many more. In this case, there are many more parentheses to put. So let's start. C2 minus D2. Enclose it with parentheses, please. Okay. Divided by C3 plus C4. Okay. Now everything should be enclosed with parentheses again, and the black parentheses that I've typed right now are these parentheses here. Okay, so these are the black one. Squared minus 5. Okay, what I write here is the minimal amount of parentheses necessary. So if you have less parentheses than this, it's wrong. Better, you must change the formula. You can use less parentheses, but you must change the formula. This is the minimal amount. If you want to put more parentheses, for example, do you want to put a parenthesis also here? Because you don't trust that the minus 5 is really done at the end? Okay, you can. Do you want to put another big parenthesis around here? You can, no problem for me. You want to put the parentheses also around the 2? Yes. Okay, so you can see all the parentheses are colored to match. So the message is abuse parentheses if you don't know mathematics well. Okay? If you are a master of mathematics, you can use the minimal amount of parentheses, don't worry. But use parentheses, don't worry, it's not an error to use parentheses. Okay, let's talk about references. We have seen that you can take values from other cells simply clicking on them or just typing the number. Okay. There is a wonderful feature whenever you drag the formula. We have already seen it in practice, but let's see it. Delete this one to clear it up. Okay, equal. Let's see the time. Okay. So suppose I want to say that G2 is equal to C2 divided by D2. So the ratio between C2 and D2. Okay. Now I want to do the same for all the other rows. So for row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, I can do it manually. Click and click. Obviously, it takes hours if you have 1,000 rows. Okay. Look, it's much better to take the cell and can you look at this little black box? Drag it down. What happens whenever you drag a cell down? The original formula was C3 divided by D3. I have dragged the formula down, and you can see that C3 divided by D3 has become C4 divided by D4, then C5 divided by D5, C6 divided by C6. So what has happened? All the numbers, so all the row references have increased. This is a general rule. Whenever you drag a formula down, all the row references will increase. Okay. It works even if you are not in the same row. For example, here, let's say you go here to row 3 equal this one divided by the previous one. Okay, so C3 divided by C2. Okay, I drag it down. And you can see it works. You get C4 divided by C3, C5 divided by C4. Okay, so it works even when the two references are not necessarily in the same row. You can make more silly thing equal this one plus this one minus this one. Okay, drag down, and you will see that this one involves these three cells. This one involves the cell a little below. Okay. So whenever you drag down, doesn't matter which cell references you have, all the row references, so all the numbers, the numbers which make a reference to a row, not the numbers, the standard numbers. So if you type -5, it will remain -5. All the numbers here, the ones which make a reference to a row, increase. Okay. Strangely enough, it works also in the opposite direction. So if you type equal this one divided by this one, and you drag up, you are here referring to cells C9 and D9, you drag up, and you can see C8, D8, C7, D7, C6, D6. So when you drag up, all the row references decrease. Okay, so dragging down increases the row references, dragging up decreases the row references. Well, let's see a strange situation. Suppose you are here, you want to put equal this one minus, let's say this one, okay? C3 minus D12, fine. Okay, you drag up, and let's look what happens. Well, this becomes C2 minus D11, fine. Well, this unfortunately becomes C1 minus D10. C1, it's not a number, you cannot do the subtraction, you get the value error. It means that you have an error, wrong type in function. There is a wrong type in the subtraction function. Here, even worse, you had C1 minus D10, dragging above will result in C0 minus D9, but C0 doesn't exist, so Excel gives you the ref error. Now you understand what is the ref error. You get the ref error whenever you drag too much and you go beyond the limits of the cells. Okay, it's not a very common error. Okay. So dragging the formula, down increases the row reference, up decreases the row reference. What happens when you drag the formula on the to the right and to the left? So suppose you type equal this one by 2. Okay, C3 by 2. You take the cell and you drag the formula to the right. What happens? Well, C3 by 2 was the original formula, D3 by 2, E3 by 2, and F3 by 2, which is empty, therefore the result is 0. Empty cells are considered to be 0 by Excel. So, dragging a formula to the right increases the letter. Okay. Well, and how can you easily imagine? Dragging a formula to the left, so now we have E7 minus D11, dragging it to the left, D7 minus C11 decreases the column reference. So dragging a formula to the right increases the column reference, dragging formulas to the left decreases the column reference. Well, it's much more common to drag things to the down rather than up, right, or left. So down and sometimes right are the typical common dragging. Okay, well, left and up are rarely used, especially left. Okay, delete. Sometimes you don't want this to happen. Let's make a practical example. Oops. Okay. Suppose go to sheet logical. Okay. Here you have your wonderful price expressed in dollars. Okay. You want to convert it to euro. Let's see the current dollar-euro conversion rate. Okay, 0.7628 here. Okay, so you write the conversion rate here. So you write your conversion rate in cell C9, C20, let's say, so it becomes easier. Can I? Okay. You write your conversion rate in C20. Okay, in order to convert it to euros, equal this one divided by the conversion rate C20. Okay, so you get the price. Oops. It has changed suddenly to euros. It was dollar. Okay. So you want to get in dollars, you have to divide it. Okay. Okay, it's written in euro, but we tell him immediately that we are talking about dollars. Caribbean dollars. United States dollar. Okay. So the formula F2 divided by C20. Now I want to do the same for all the rest. Well, I would like to drag down clearly, but what happens? I drag down the result, division by 0, division by 0, division by 0, division by 0, because F2 divided by C20 has become F3 divided by C21, F4 divided by C22. And this is not what I want. I want that C20 remains fixed. Okay. How to solve it? Well, I know some people who solve the problem in the following way. They go here and they repeat the number. Okay. So everything works. Well, it's silly. Okay, so we don't solving the problem in the following way at exam means wrong. Okay. So how to solve it? Well, there is a way to tell Excel never touch this reference. The way it's the following. You put $C $20. So putting a dollar in front of the column and putting a dollar in front of the row means never touch these references. You have made your reference absolute. It's absolute. It's untouchable. The dollar nails down the column and nails down the row. This dollar means the column should not be touched, and this dollar means the row should not be touched. Let's see whether it works. I drag it down, and you can see that it works fine. The F2 has become F10, but the C20 has remained C20. Okay. So putting a dollar in front of the column blocks the column. Putting a dollar in front of the row blocks the row. In this case, however, is it necessary to put $C $20? Well, no. It's enough to block the row. Blocking the column, in fact, it's very rare. You block the column whenever you drag to the right or to the left. Here we drag simply down, so it's not really necessary to block also the row. So you could do the same thing in the following way, like this. So you block only the row. You leave the column free, but since you don't drag to the right, it will not be modified anyway. You drag down, and you get the result. Okay, so this is called partial absolute reference. You can make also the opposite, blocking only the column and not the row whenever you drag things to the right and you don't want them to move. Okay, it's more or less the same way. At the exam, if I don't tell you anything, you can use the reference that you want. Okay, but you can solve this problem using this reference here or this reference here. Okay. However, whenever I am very clear and I say with appropriate partial absolute reference, so when I wrote the adjective appropriate, it means that you must take the right one, the best one among all the possibilities. Okay, the possibilities are this one, nothing, or totally absolute. Okay, so you must choose the best one, which in this case is this one. Okay, it still gives you the possibility to drag to the right, but not dragging down. Okay. Okay. Pressing F4, the key F4 on your keyboard, it's a very useful tool to switch between relative, fully absolute, and the true partial absolute, as I did right now. So you can type equal C20, okay. Whenever you here and you press F4, you can switch. Now I'm pressing F4 continuously. Okay. And let's go to the functions, which is the core of Excel. Okay. Excel has a lot of functions. You can build others if you want, if you know a programming language. Okay. However, there is a big warning in red. Name of the function are language dependent. It means that if you have Excel installed in German or Italian, the name of the function are different. Not only different, are completely different. So really, for example, in Italian, usually they are completely screwed up. You cannot translate the name easily. I suggest you, if you're using Excel in German or Italian, to have the conversion table, which is present on my website, printed. Okay, there is on my website the conversion table. You can print it. You can carry it at exam. So if you're using Excel in Italian or German, use it, because otherwise you will not even find these functions. Okay. Okay, let's see how function work. Equal. Okay. For example, suppose I ask you, print the square root of price. Okay, it's a silly request, but the square root of price. SQRT. Okay. SQRT is the function for square root. You can see that while I am typing, Excel very kindly suggests me a list of functions which start with S, Q, R, T. Okay. Or if whenever you see the right one, okay, you can click. Let's see if it works. Yes, it works. You have double click. You can double click, or you can simply press Tab if it is highlighted. Okay. As soon as you open the parentheses, and I recommend you all the function, and I say all, needs the parentheses. Even functions which don't have any argument need parentheses. Okay. As soon as you open the parentheses, Excel recognizes which function do you want and makes here a little help. This little help is very helpful. It tells you that the square root needs a number as an argument. What is between parentheses is called arguments or parameters. Okay, so both names are correct. Needs a number as argument or as first and only parameter. Okay, moreover, so it's, well, for square root it's silly. You know that the square root is a square root of a number, but if you are talking about more complex functions, this will be very helpful. Moreover, you can click with a mouse here. You can see it's underlined. Click, and after 2-3 hours, no, immediately, you get the online help. You can use it at exam. It's a help on the function. Now, the help on square root, it's not very helpful, but for complex functions, it may come handy in case you forget something. Returns a positive square root. The syntax, square root of a number. Number required, the number for which you want the square root. Very simple. Remark, if number is negative, since the square root of a number doesn't exist, square root returns the num error value. Well, if at this point you still have not understood how does the function work, you have here wonderful examples, which for the square root are rather silly, with the result here. Okay. Now you can type a number, so you can really type 25 and see what happens. 5. Or you can type a cell. You must close the parentheses. As usual, you can drag it down and the cell will be updated. Okay. Inside the function, you can put formulas. So now we have put only F2, but suppose I tell you I would like to see the square root of the available quantity minus the requested quantity. So square root of available quantity minus requested quantity. So you can see I have the square root of a function. Okay, it's like let's see if I have how can I delete? No, it doesn't work. Erase. It's like doing something like this. Well, it's incredible that I write clearly E. E is got, okay. I'd like writing something like this. Okay. That's it. It works. You drag it down. or in some cases it gives you the num error, because d6 minus e6 is minus 3, which is negative. Okay, here the result is 10 because it's the square root of 100. Okay, you can do operations before or later, so you can do 3 by the square root, 3 times the square root. Well, here, if you don't trust yourself, you can put parentheses. Okay. So you can do whatever you want with the function. They work perfectly like a mathematical function. So you are not strictly limited to this usage here. Okay, you can put formulas here inside, and you can put formulas also outside. Okay, you can put also other functions inside and outside, but we'll see it later. Let's see now some typical functions. Well, the square root we have already seen it. The exponential, I hope you know what an exponential is. Equal exp. At the last exam, I saw a student which confused the exponential with the exponent. Okay, the exponential is e to the power of Can I clear everything? History, help? No, I cannot clear. I have clear. Okay. The exponential is this thing here, e to the power of f2. E means, well, approximately 2.71. It's a famous mathematical number, okay, which is widely used in economics. Okay, you probably didn't think of that when you were studying it at high school, but it's used a lot in economics. Okay, it's a huge number. Whenever you see things like this, you should don't worry, it's not an error. E means that it's a huge number. If you don't like seeing it like this, try to enlarge the column. If it doesn't work, try to tell him that you want here numbers in the standard format. This is the scientific notation. This is the scientific notation. You want them in the standard format, and you get the huge number in standard format. They are so large. How much? Okay, they are very huge. Okay, extremely huge. Okay, so the exponential. It's rather simple, nothing to say. Also here, you can combine the two things. You can calculate the exponential of the square root of the price. Okay, so remember, you may combine functions. Okay, you may combine functions also in more complex way. The exponential of 3 plus 2 plus the square root divided by 2. Okay, so many students believe you cannot combine function. Yes, you can. You can combine function, and you can combine function with mathematical operations. So the thing can become really complex. It's exactly as writing a mathematical function. Oops. Okay. Pi. What is P? Can you see that P is without any argument, but you must still open and close the parentheses, otherwise it doesn't work. As you can see, P is what you expect to be. Okay. It's a constant function. ln, natural logarithm. Well, I hope you know what a natural logarithm is. Otherwise, I would not like to be your mathematics professor, or better, I would not like to be you. Okay, well, same thing, natural logarithm. Oops. The natural logarithm It's sometimes indicated with like this, okay, or like this. Okay. Oh, now it has got them correctly. Okay. It's the opposite of the exponential. So if you calculate exponential of the natural logarithm, you don't get 1, you get back 28. Okay? You get exactly back what? Same thing if you calculate the logarithm of the exponential. They are one the inverse of the other, like the square root and the square. Okay, log. Oh, log is the first function that we find that has 2 arguments. Okay, you can see the 2 arguments. First one is the number, second one is the base. Well, I imagine you know what the base is. Log base. Okay, b is the base and x is the argument. Okay. So the logarithm in base 2, it's one of the very famous base. The logarithm of 28 in base 2. The 2 arguments must be separated by a semicolon. And now you do remember why some lessons ago, I clearly told you, pay attention that inside the Windows configuration, your list separator must be the semicolon. I will repeat it now, just to make sure you know it. Control panel, appearance and personalization, or better, clock language and region, regional language, additional settings, list separator. The list separator must be the semicolon. If it is not a semicolon, all your functions will not work because you cannot put a semicolon here. So pay attention. In case it doesn't work, in case you are sure that the function is correct but it doesn't work, the problem is your list separator. Okay, this is the logarithm using base 2. Well, it's not mandatory to use a numeric base. You can use also another cell as a base. It's base 3. Okay, and when you change this, you can see when I change the cell, automatically the function gets updated. So Excel formulas and Excel function gets updated automatically whenever you change the cell. Okay. There is a little thing, why base is between square brackets, you can see here. Let's look at help. Base is between square brackets because while number is required, base is an optional argument, so it's an argument that you may also avoid writing. What happens when you don't write this optional argument? The base of the logarithm, if base is omitted, it is assumed to be 10. So if you don't write it, Excel will take 10. Okay, it's a very famous, the logarithm in base 10 is a famous logarithm used in engineering, and this is the reason why, while in mathematics, for example, people use 2. Okay. So if you type 10, okay, or you don't type anything, it's the same, because Excel will assume it to be 10. Round. Equal round. Okay. Simply rounds a number. You specify how many digits. For example, 0. 0 is the typical choice. You still see the digits, but you can see it's rounded. 64 has been 64,95 has been rounded to 65. Okay. They're all 95. Yes. Let's say 10, 34, it's rounded to 10. Okay, so round. Pay attention that round doesn't simply hide the digits. It completely rounds the number. So the number now is a different one. This one and this one are different. Even though you can specify that you don't want to see decimal places. Now you can see now the two columns looks the same. 28, 28, 19, 19, 19, 19. But here the number is only apparently rounded. It's, let's say, aesthetically rounded. It's rounded because you have told him to use a few digits. If you use more digits, you will see that it's not rounded. Here, it's practically rounded. Even if you increase the number of digits, you get perfectly even number, perfectly integral number. So at exam, if I ask you to round a number, I mean using the round function, not simply hiding the digits in this way. Okay, you can round if you want to one digit. Ten dot comma 34 becomes 10,3. Okay, the other one are rounded according to mathematical rules, where the 5 is rounded up, so 10 to 9 gets rounded to 10. Okay, round down and round up rounds always down and always up. Okay, well, while round follows the mathematical rule, so 0 to 4 is rounded down, 5 to 9 is rounded up, round down and round up rounds always down and always up. ABS. Please calculate the difference between available quantity and requested quantity. Okay. And here, calculate the absolute value. The absolute value is the same number, but without the sign symbol, so always positive. Well, you can do it manually, so say 2, 19, 22, 50, 3, 60. But if you want to do it automatically, ABS. In this way, you're sure that even if this number in the future changes, you have always a positive number here. So, sorry, this one had some digits, I imagine. Yes. Why? Because this one was not 19, but it was 18.95. Interesting. Let's repristinate 19. Okay. Okay, so this one is the same as this one, but with a plus symbol. Well, even if it later changes, for example, here you type 3,300, so it becomes negative. Okay, this one still is positive. Rand. Rand, it's the generator of random numbers. Without any arguments, it generates a random number between 0 and 1. Okay, you can see. At exam, if I ask you a random number between 0 and 1, I mean to use rand, not to invent a number yourself, as some students do. So not to invent a number yourself, and not using RANDBETWEEN. There is another function, RANDBETWEEN. I want you to use rand. On the other hand, so this is a random number between 0 and 1. So between 0 and 1, it means that you have also to use the commas, okay? It is a random integer number between 4 and 23, okay? If I ask you, for example, a random integer number between 4 and 23, use RANDBETWEEN, okay, for 23. You can see that whenever I do something, all the random number changes. So if I delete this thing, all the random number, you can see, change continuously. They are random. They are used clearly in statistics. Or in the slides, there is not RANDBETWEEN, we add it immediately. Okay. Max, min, sum. Okay, delete, 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 delete. Okay, go to first. equal max. The max calculates the maximum of a range. So we are working here with a function which not only works with single values, but takes entire ranges. How does it work? Max. Now go on C2, click and drag down up, let's say to C19. Okay. And look what is written here, C2 colon C19. The colon is the symbol for the range. It means everything between C2 and C19, close the parentheses, and the maximum will calculate the maximum between C2 and C19, which I think should be 12.50. 12.50. Okay. You can calculate the maximum also of a rectangular range. So, for example, the maximum of this thing is here. Okay. C2 E19 means everything between C2 and E19, which should be 18.80, I think. Okay. The maximum accepts several arguments. You can use several arguments. So you can say the maximum of this range, semicolon, this other range, semicolon, this individual value, semicolon, this individual value, semicolon, this other range. So you can put, it's a very flexible function. You can put as many arguments as you want, and you can put inside ranges and numbers. It will take up, eat up everything, and return the maximum of everything, 13.48. Well, here it's suggesting us that there may be the green triangle is suggesting that maybe there are mistakes. In this case, there is no mistake, but Excel doesn't like it, so ignore error. Okay, same thing, exactly identical. The minimum doesn't need any explanation. Okay, but there is a little interesting thing I would like to tell you. Calculate the minimum of column C. So you go here, equal min. You drag up. If for mistake inside the minimum or inside the maximum it happens that you pick up also something which is not numeric, so for example instead of C2 C19 you write C1 C19, you take up this label which is not numeric, don't worry, the min max will ignore it. Okay, can you see? Ignore 3.23, which is this number here. Now, suppose I ask you to calculate the minimum of column D and column E. Well, instead of retyping it, you can simply drag. So also for ranges, it's valid the dragging. If you drag to the right, you increase the letter. If you drag down, you increase the number. Currently, we have dragged to the right, and we have increased the letter. So here, the letter has become E. Okay. Min and max, and a very similar function is sum. It's really identical. It calculates the sum. Let's calculate here the sum of the column. Also here, if for mistake you include also the first one, nothing happens, don't worry, it will be ignored. Okay, you can drag the sum also. Okay, also the sum is extremely flexible. You can add other things, you can add other ranges, you can even add your own numbers, minus 23. Okay, so sum is very flexible, exactly like min and max it works. Okay. Many people may ask me, why using the sum function when we have the plus? So couldn't we do simply equal this one plus this one plus this one plus this? Well, apart from the fact that it's long to type and that is you use up all the colors, okay, there are other major drawbacks. Look, okay, it works, no? Same result. But what happens if I decide to delete row 14? Well, today I decide, well, let's delete row 14. This one works fine, restricts the range automatically. Here instead, since you have deleted a row, you have a ref, error. You can manually remove the ref error, however. But what happens if I decide to insert a new row with a new value, 3? This one gets updated and increases the value by 3. This one completely ignores the insertion of the new row, you can see. Okay. So, putting directly the sum symbol will be considered an error at exam. Well, unless you have to sum, let's say, maximum 3 things. But if you have to sum more than 3 things in a row, and you use the sum symbol, it will be considered an error, because it's the less optimal way to solve the problem. Okay, we stop here for this video.